Historians estimate that in all of recorded history, planet Earth has been without war about 7% of the time. Given that sobering fact, it is not hard in any given year to find a significant anniversary involving war. 2012 is no exception. This year marks the 200th anniversary of a war that few Americans know much about, the War of 1812. It was, without question, our most unpopular war, especially to New Englanders. In fact, when President James Madison requested that Connecticut furnish its militias for federal service, Governor Trumbull flatly refused. Haddam, being a shipbuilding community at the time, was vehemently opposed to the war, as its economy was very much dependent on trade with England. Furthermore, so opposed to the War of 1812 was Connecticut that Hartford hosted a convention of the New England states that talked seriously about seceding from the Union nearly 50 years before South Carolina's secession triggered the Civil War. Despite the opposition both on a regional and local level, Haddam militiamen did their part to defend their town and to help neighbors. In fact, 41 men from Haddam responded to a call for help when British Marines attacked the harbor in Essex at Pettipog Point nearly 200 years ago. Few people realize that more American naval vessels, 29, were destroyed in Essex, Connecticut during that raid than were destroyed by the Japanese sneak attack at Pearl Harbor. It remains the single largest attack against American naval vessels in history. The list of militiamen from Haddam who aided their neighbors in Essex reads like a who's who of traditional Haddam family names. There were 5 Brainards, 3 Shaylors, 3 Brookses, 3 Churches, 3 Clarks, 2 Kelseys, a Parmalee, a Ventris, an Arnold, a Hubbard, a Bailey, a Goff, a Dickinson, and a Stannard, among others. Samuel Brooks and Deacon Nehemiah Brainerd commanded the group. We should not forget the service of these men. 2012 also marks the 150th anniversary of the famous Battle of Fredericksburg, Virginia, during the Civil War, a battle in which General Alexander Shaler, born and raised in Haddam, Connecticut, distinguished himself through his leadership and bravery. Shaler was descended from Thomas Shaler of Stratford-on-Avon, the home of William Shakespeare. His ancestors came to this town in 1662, 350 years ago, and became active in the seafaring business. 13 members of the Shaler family were lost at sea by the time Alex Shaler was a student at the Brainerd Academy here in town. Few people realize that Shaler, a native of Haddam, Connecticut, is the only soldier from Middlesex County ever to win the Congressional Medal of Honor. His citation for heroism during the Battle of Marie's Heights at Fredericksburg reads as follows. At a most critical moment, the head of the charging column being about to be crushed by the severe fire of the enemy's artillery and infantry, he pushed forward with a supporting column, pierced the enemy's works, and turned their flank. It should be noted as well that Shaler was the only person in the Civil War to have both commanded a prisoner of war camp at Johnson's Island in the winter of 1863 and to have been a prisoner of war himself. In fact, General Alexander Shaler was one of the Immortal 600, a group of federal prisoners deliberately placed in Charleston to be under the lengthy Union artillery assault of that city in a Confederate effort to deter the shelling of Charleston. It is amazing that he was able to survive the terror of that much under-publicized event and then return to battle after a prisoner exchange on August 3, 1864. Shaler was mustered out of the service in August 1865, 4 months after the war had ended. Alexander Shaler's remarkable achievements continued after the war. In 1866, he was appointed to the New York City Board of Supervisors. In 1867, Governor Fenton appointed him General of the 1st Division of the New York National Guard. In the same year, he was appointed Fire Commissioner and President of the New York Fire Department, a position he held until 1873. His achievements with the New York City Fire Department were remarkable, as this quotation from 1885 demonstrates. The city of New York is greatly indebted to him for the best drilled and most efficient fire department in the world. All the important rules and regulations now in force in this department were adopted during his administration. Within this period, the losses by fire in the city of New York were reduced from 6 million per annum to 1,500,000. So well regarded was Shaler as fire commissioner that the city of Chicago made him a consulting engineer for the Board of Police and Fire in that city. He spent 3 months reorganizing the officers and members of Chicago's fire department following the famous Chicago fire of 1871. In addition, Shaler was a member of the National Geographic Society and a member of both the American Museum of Natural History and the New York Historical Society. In 1883, he assumed perhaps his most important position, President of the New York City Board of Health, at a time when the sanitary conditions of New York were heavily criticized. It should come as no surprise that his leadership skills brought about a revolution in the sanitation of the city. Shaler later became mayor of Ridgewood, New Jersey from 1899 to 1901. He married Mary McMurray of New York City. They had 5 children, 4 girls and a boy. The boy, Ira, was named after the general's father, a Haddam native who was buried here in town and whose house still stands on Bridge Street. Ira was a graduate of Cornell, born exactly 150 years ago this month, and later trained as an engineer. Young Ira was a veteran of the Spanish-American War. Sadly, he was killed in his 40th year in a tunnel collapse while working on the construction of the New York City subway system. A veteran of 13 major Civil War engagements, including Gettysburg, Antietam, and Fredericksburg, Alexander Shaler of Haddam, Connecticut, distinguished himself in all that he did, both in civilian and in military life. General Shaler died on December 28, 1911, age 84. He's buried in Ridgewood, New Jersey. His New York Times obituary stated that in a lower portion of this city is many a flagstone placed by Shaler's own hand, but his heart was always in the soldier's life. One of his top military aides, Colonel Room, in speaking of his comrade in arms, said, "There never was a braver man than General Alexander Shaler." An apt assessment for a man who won the Congressional Medal of Honor, the only man in history from Middlesex County ever to earn that most prestigious award. Memorial Day is a time of remembrance, and few towns in Connecticut can match the town of Haddam in its annual rituals of remembrance. Let us, therefore, today remember and honor the remarkable life of Haddam native Alexander Shaler, as well as the Haddam militiamen of the War of 1812, on the 150th and the 200th anniversaries of their achievements. And as Alexander Shaler's family also had roots in neighboring Killingworth, perhaps it is time to find a place somewhere in the school curriculum to honor his most remarkable life. Thank you very much.
Yay! Yay, Grampy! Wow. Yay, Grampy! Yay!
Second, Sinelli, Coastal Firing Squad.